Alright guys, Scrappy again today. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major update yesterday in terms of what the landscape of the CDL is going to look like going forward, with the original founder, or at least one of the original founders of Major League Gaming back in the day, and then Esports engine over the last few years, returning to the organisation that currently runs the show behind the Call of Duty League. AdamAp Return has been rather vocal over the last couple of years on changes he would like to see within the Call of Duty League landscape to get it back somewhat more so to what it was in the CWL, and even before that as well. Will these changes be actions? What does it mean, especially as we're leaving a franchise era and going into something which seems to be very different indeed? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Scrap and Tej, as ever, having a bit of back and forth here as we go into the upcoming season. But there's a fair few things we're going to dive into today. Firstly, we talked yesterday on the Toronto Ultra team, the fact that they wanted Real right. So we're pretty sure Toronto is going to be inside CleanX, Beans joining instead of Scrappy basically, and then JoeDeceives coming in instead of Envoy. Apparently, the original target for Toronto was to have a fully European team with a Spanish player there as well, because Toronto, as an organisation, they also have Mad Lions, KOI, under their header as Overactive Media, and that, of course, is the Spanish perspective, right? And those were the rumours that the reason why Miami didn't want to do the deal, as in selling Real for $60 or $65 or so thousand to the Toronto guys, was because there's some drama between those two respective organisations, and therefore they were never willing really to ever get the deal done. And you could well see that the reason why Toronto wanted Real was partly because of those reasons in the first place. So, well, Adamu then quote tweets this and kind of laughs about it and says, well, this might well be true, probably true. So kind of confirming this idea that maybe Heretics were stringing Toronto along just to be petty about the rivalries between those organisations. I don't know. The reality is it might work out for the better. I actually like the JoeDeceives pickup a lot if they can pull that off, which I think that they can. Joe had a pretty good year on Gorillas, even though the team was an absolute shambles in Modern Warfare 2, and then this most recent season was good, and then very good towards the end of the year. Certainly, obviously, he went through the whole thing when Afro stayed, Joe was gone, Joe was back, Afro was gone, and then just kept on improving from there to the end of the season, and of course did a great job at the World Cup to come second at the end of the day. That team, I've got them as pretty much fourth in the standings right now. We looked at this briefly yesterday, but I thought I'd go through in a bit more detail because a few things to say here. It's very difficult to rank these teams. As I said yesterday, a couple of these teams aren't perfectly accurate because we don't know who Raven's fourth is going to be, and we think that Nero's going to Rocker instead of Hook on this list, but everything else is pretty much correct. We don't know what's going on with Heretics. Is Vickle still there? Because Vickle was in our chat when we were making this the other day, roasting us a bit, and fair enough, like, you can do what he likes, and so Vickle was definitely not implying that he's guaranteed gone. I think there's a possibility here that Miami have some sort of five-man team where maybe when the game launches, they just rotate players in scrims to find out who their ideal four's going to be. Falcons, I think, can improve over the course of the season, but realistically, the expectations for those guys are, you know, no more than 12th. It's just how it's going to be. And then I genuinely think some of these teams we've put towards the bottom could be better than we think. I mean, I know we've got Boston at 11th here, but I genuinely don't think they're going to be atrocious. I actually think there is some upside on that team. I kind of wanted to put them higher, but then you look at the Rocket team and you think, well, those guys could be pretty decent as well. Certainly at the start of the year, Estriel, Nero on the SMGs, Geo and Porlex on the ARs, like there's some promise there. Miami were good last year and they brought Rencor in, so they could be a bit better, but just on paper, those are probably the weaker teams when comparing to the other mid teams, which is where you find this. And there are so many questions on these teams. It just depends which roster has more upside. The reason why I've got Toronto, we had Toronto in fourth here, is just because in terms of SMGs, they just have the strongest. I mean, CleanX and JoeDeceives is no doubt the strongest SMG duo. I think that Kismet and Lynz is going to be maybe better than people expect them to be as well. It's interesting because I don't know, like, it's tough for Kiz because how good is he? I mean, we've seen him with HyDra the last few years and he's had his results there. So Kiz with Lynz, what's that going to look like? Is Kiz going to be able to step up a bit? Is Lynz going to play in quite the same way HyDra does? Probably not. I mean, getting, yeah, sure, French SMG talent with some pace and some impact, but it's probably not going to be HyDra's level, so Kiz has got to do more. So that is the question, but that's, I think, the reason why Toronto are 4th for me is just because they have fewer downsides than these other teams have that have been put together. Surge have some good upside. Like, I love the 04 Abuzah duo. I like the Nastie pickup. The Hicksy thing is a question mark, right? I just don't know whether Hicksy and 04, because even 04 last season in the respawns, he was getting slammed on occasion. If Hicksy can put up a solid 0.9, 0.95, and he's a good LAN player as well, Hicksy, they can be good. That's the reason why I've actually got them 5th on my list. I think their upside is potentially better than some of the others, but there is some risk involved there, but I think I do like that Surge team. The Cloud9 team, I'm not so convinced by. Genuinely, I was tempted to have them lower than this, but that might be a hot take. I like the Sib-Attach AR duo, no problem. It's just, I don't see that Kremp Mack thing lasting on the SMGs, and there's just other teams around them that could be better placed. Intrigued to your thoughts on that. It's a tough one. Ravens, I kind of wanted to put higher as well, because I like the slasher TJ Gwinn thing. I just don't know who the 4th's going to be. If it's like a Nero and someone steps up to run, you know, the AR, the second AR, the flex like a TJ, that could work. Maybe the same story with a guy like Vivid, I don't know. But it's tough to place these teams. And then Gentle Mates, it just kind of reminded me that when that New York Subliners roster was formed back in Modern Warfare 2, and they went on to win the World Championship that season, they were considered to be like 7th or 8th by most. I mean, that was Kiz, Skyz, Priestahh, HyDra. That was where they were considered to be. They went on to be the best team in the game at the end of the year. So Kiz, Skyz, Priestahh, Lynz, could they be better than expectations? Maybe. Is Priestahh as good as he was a couple of years ago? Maybe not. I mean, that's a question. I think Skyz is maybe an underrated AR, but he's always going to be a slow AR. And on this game, Black Ops 6, I don't know how well that's going to work. So it's just very difficult to rank these teams. I think that the top 3 are obvious. The order, though, is a question. 4th, I think most would say Toronto, but there's a debate, I guess, on that. Then anything from 5th down to like 11th, I think you could genuinely make a case one way or the other. But I think we did a reasonable job. The other debate, of course, was what's going on at the top of the list, because we had FaZe as number 1. Now, this, you could genuinely make a case, I think, anyway, because we know that FaZe have weaknesses. Can they get the best out of Cellium all the time? How's the AR duo going to work continually? Is aBeZy, you know, how's aBeZy going to be on this game, because he wasn't as good at last game as maybe he has been before? They won EWC. OpTic, they won the World Championship and Major 3, so you can make a case for them as well. And then even Thieves, they have an unbelievable amount of upside on that roster, and you can argue that on paper they could be the strongest team in the entire game. The way that HyDra and Envoy will work, the way that Scrap and Ghosty will work, I think you can make the case, but they're unproven, so we felt like we kind of had to put them 3rd, but, you know, I was tempted to put them 1st just for the impressions, to be honest. But FaZe over OpTic is always going to cause a bit of controversy. I think it does depend a bit on exactly what you are deciding here, because if you're predicting the final season standings, then FaZe number 1 is kind of a no-brainer, because they always are number 1. And the other thing is that every time a team has won the World Championship, it's incredibly rare, for whatever reason, that team can maintain any form of success going into next year. Only Thieves managed it, where they won an event in 23 after winning champs in 22. Every other World Championship winning team blew it up shortly afterwards, because they just didn't have a good following season. So there is a history of that, and there is also a question on, well, Dashy's now won champs, does it take the pressure off him, so he's now going to play even better, or is it going to be like, well, he's accomplished his goal, so what does that mean? I don't know, but you can debate this till the end of time, to be honest, but I definitely think that it's not clear cut who's going to be the best team at the start of next season, because every single year we talk about a tier list going into the new year, and we say, oh, well, the world champions have to be 1st. How often are the world champions actually the best team when the game launches? It's actually very rare over the last like 10 years. So, and OpTic can absolutely be capable of doing so. I mean, they're the world champions for a good reason, and they could still go on to win events and maybe go back-to-back world champions. I mean, try and do something that's never been done before. But at the start of the season, you never really know how things are going to turn out. So interested in your thoughts in the comments as ever. Clayster is not on that list of players. I don't know where, if anywhere, he's going to end up right now. It is a big question as to whether he can get a spot somewhere, whether a team like Minnesota Rocker could at least be considering it. But let's talk about this AdamAp Return stuff. So AdamAp Return, old school MLG founder, Esports Engine founder as well, and has been out of the space now for a couple of years after Esports Engine were acquired by the ESL Faceit Group. There was some sort of drama involved there. I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes, but AdamAp eventually was no longer with that organization. I'm sure he cashed in a fair bit by the transaction because ESL FaZe Group, owned by the Savvy Gaming Group, Saudi Arabian based effectively as it now is. But AdamAp has been talking on social media now for some time about returning. I think his non-compete agreement ended in like February next year or something like that. And it seemed like in February next year, he was potentially looking to start his own events company again and build up from scratch again. I guess the problem is it's tough to compete with ESL FaZe Group right now because they kind of have a monopoly on event production, and lots of his former staff are working for those guys, and I imagine it was just difficult to make it work. So for whatever reason, I don't exactly know what's been worked out behind the scenes here, but it turns out that AdamAp is coming back now to ESL FaZe Group and joining former teammates, getting the chance to work with peers I've known for 20 plus years, excited to get back to building opportunities for communities, players, and our publishing partners. So this is a big deal. He's joining as the Senior Vice President of Esports for North America, and he will be involved in basically the immediate term in running CDL events again. I think he made it very clear in the replies as well, because Ben JoeDeceives says, hey, like, you've respawned, gonna see you at some CDL events this year, and he says, I wouldn't have come back if I could not help with the CDL. So AdamAp has been very vocal on how he would prefer these esports events to be run, and look, whether he has the correct vision for the future of the league, whether he has the power to execute on some of these ideas, that is another question. But AdamAp is considered like the greatest ever from an event production perspective for what he did in the MLG days, and all of the pros and individuals in the scene that have known him from back then know that he was a massive foundational part in making this esport what it has actually become. You talk about Hex, you talk about Scump, you talk about Nadeshot as being some of these guys on the Mount Rushmore of esports, certainly Call of Duty esports. AdamAp could well have a place on that Mount Rushmore given how impactful he's been for the scene. So him being away from the scene has been slightly problematic, but to be fair, even when he was with Esports Engine a couple of years ago, it's not like things were great in the CDL context. So sure, he might have some ideas. Whether those ideas can be executed on is a question. Whether those are the right ideas is another question. AdamAp, for example, has wanted to go back to a state where we have the Call of Duty event alongside the Halo event, alongside the StarCraft event or whatever, at one big venue on a weekend, which makes things way more effective and affordable to do, to be perfectly honest. This, for example, was a tweet that he did in July during kind of just after the World Championship concluded, talking about the insane crowd they had there, the insane engagement, further proof that if you treat esports right, it will pay back the investment. Hard reset and resurgence will happen. Too much potential to continue letting stupidity happen unchecked, he says. So yeah, Adam's perspective is very clear that he's not been so impressed by the decision makers, especially around the Call of Duty League and esports in general over the last few years. And now he's joining the team again that is effectively running the show there. So, as long as Adam has the freedom to make some of the decisions in his own image, I think it will be a positive thing for the scene. The question is what's going to happen this year, if anything. Is there any time to change or update the format? Is there any time for maybe Adam or others to work on having more events? I think that is the number one thing that COD fans want for the new season, is just more events. Fewer qualifiers, if that's even possible. The rumour is, as it stands, then this has been the rumour for a couple of weeks now, this season of the CDL is going to start potentially like earlier than ever. There's rumours that there might even be matches at the end of November with, a tournament in December, which we've had before, but that is like, we need that. We need a tournament in December, and the earlier the matches can start, the better. But look, if there is a tournament in December, as is presently rumoured, then how many events are there going to be next year? Because the World Cup again is probably going to be in August time. Champs this year was in July. So how many events are in that time frame? I don't know the answer to those questions. I'm not sure what the plans are, but there will be changes, right? And the league has changed substantially in the last few months, given the elimination of the franchise payments. They've gone back to the teams. The structure is changing quite considerably. I wouldn't be surprised if next year the necessity for a city-based model disappears and the teams no longer have to be city-based. Like, I think we are going to go back to more of an old school style of the Call of Duty competitive ecosystem, and I think that AdamAp can be involved in that. Whether the decision makers above Adam, because at the end of the day, Activision Blizzard, Microsoft as it is, they employ ESL FaZe Group to run their events for them and run their esports structure for them. So, you know, they are beholden to the guys that are paying them. And if Activision and Microsoft have their perspective and they only have this amount of budget, then maybe there's only so much that can be done. But I'm very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Adam's straight off to DreamHack Atlanta today. He's going to see his friends on the Halo side because they're running the World Championship this weekend as well. So I think there's some decent reason to be optimistic about the future of the COD League based on this announcement. But very much interested in your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.